Yep. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Attendance, Neil Mascola. Here. Tommy Kiernan. Here. Kevin Gendron. Absent. Joe Cascucci. Here. AJ Gordis. Here. Eileen Bronco. Here. Which rule? He's absent. And so I'll let's jump to new business B.
You want 2 minutes?
Yeah, let's do the minutes first. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the July 16th, 2025 zoning commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thanks. So let's go to new business B, a special permit application referred to the planning commission and set a public hearing date for Wednesday, September 24th, zoning meeting for a camp facility for the property located at 308 Guntown Road, applicant Naugatuck YMCA.
Chairman Kevin Sherry, 38 Fairview Avenue, Connecticut. On behalf of the Naugatuck YMCA, with me is Kyle Pistola, Stone Associates. The camp has been a long time in progress. I think if as I am to remember camp that everybody went to back in the late 60s, early 70s, and that was out in Oxford, of all places. There's a couple of jump starts, small other places in Woodbury, and a couple of other spots. And then there was no camp anymore other than the camp. Those one at the Y. And so the vision was to eventually get a camp. And negotiation with the Romarts worked out that this 170-acre piece of property for the camp. And we've gone to Water Pollution Control Board, Inland Wetlands, and received their approvals, and we'll be going to the other boards as well. We're pretty pleased with what we've come up with the plan. I'm going to ask Kyle to describe it to you briefly, so you get some feel for it.
Sure. So the main part of the camp is going to be constructed up on the level area above Rubber Avenue Extension. This is where we met building where people be, the main parking center, along with a lot of the other amenities and camp activities. So we'll camp up here on the slope overlooking. We have a driveway, approximately, I want to say about 3,900 feet long, coming in from Rubber Avenue Extension to this area. And that's servicing some other amenities along the road. We have a caretaker's house about halfway up the driveway. We do have some spots reserved for other amenities that, for all intents and purposes, they're just included in the stormwater report for the additional impervious areas. At the base of the driveway, there is going to be proposing an overflow parking area, along with the playscape and pavilion, along with the rest of the access throughout the year, even when we have schools on. As Kevin said, we already received approval from the Wetlands Commission and the GCA. For you guys are further to set plans along with the stormwater report. Yeah, we're really excited about this project.
Just in addition, part of the plan is a pavilion up on top, and also a swimming pool up on top. And as part of our discussion with Inland Wetlands, we were required to, after we discussed a little bit, best practices for outdoor pools. Outdoor pools are a little bit different than your indoor pool and the pH levels and all that stuff. How you handle it, where you put screening up so the wind doesn't blow the water out of the pool, protection for wildlife that comes along to get in and out, so they don't fall in and they get trapped into it. So there's all these little nuances that I've just learned about all this cool stuff, which we'll present, so you'll have some information on that. This is a multi-purpose camp that's going to serve a lot of different purposes for the life, and we'll get into all those details with you. Scouts will be glad to answer questions.
How will you fence it off or from the public? Can anybody access the property at any given time?
I don't think we're gonna actually fence it off. The way the property is, and I've only been on it briefly, it's pretty heavily overgrown. So where we open up is gonna be the access. Part of having a caretaker there is gonna be someone watching the site, making sure that nothing's going on, and that'll be part of the caretaker's job. A lot of it is overgrown back towards, this is the Warlow property, this side, I believe, and that's heavily grown in and not easily accessible. So there isn't a lot of stuff going on this parcel right now. And it runs from a pretty steep grade from the top of the hill up all the way down. So it's not easy access. It's not a flat area. So I don't think we're as worried about that. Plus adding a caretaker for security purposes and someone there all the time is good.
So you're there full time, caretaker?
Yes.
Night, day, night?
That's gonna be his living quarters.
And where are you coming in from, Rook Avenue Extension or?
We should wait for questions till the public hearing for the specific project, because you're gonna have to go over all that again.
All right, okay.
Because this is just to introduce what you're receiving in the packet, which you should mention. There's building drawings, there's that type of stuff, that's all in your packet. So this is just a simple, because they have to notify the public, they have to do all that stuff first.
To answer that question, because I do know the answer to that. Upper Avenue Extension is the access. And it's preserved, we're not gonna have, it's not gonna be heavy traffic. The kids are gonna come probably in a bus, ride, and the staff will be up in the parking lot here. We'll get into all those details. And the sewer is for their usual complete and thorough information for us, details of what's happening on the site, what the building's gonna look like, and what we envision. So I think you're gonna see that very complete. Oh.
Center. This is the bunkhouse component. That's at the floor plans and the back of
Then I'll make a motion to accept special permit application referred to the planning commission and set a public hearing for Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 at 6:10 PM for the property located at 308 Pentown Road, applicant Naugatuck YMCA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
See you next month. Let's talk about the patio closure. Commission discussion for approval for the patio closure for the approved 46-bed facility as required with special permit approval for the property located at 58 Maple Street, applicant Heritage Downtown LLC.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is John Lombard. I'm from 4 Merriman Lane, Prospect, Connecticut. I'm the manager member of Heritage Downtown. We're the owner of what I would call Unit C of the property, because we went condominium with that developer. And I'm here today just to fulfill one of our obligations of demonstrating what components we're going to use to do the enclosure for the patio. The patio was on the original plan that you all approved way back when, and I think it was a requirement that you needed to see the different components we were going to use. And I think our site planner provided that. He may be online with us. I'm not sure if he's here.
I do not see it.
Okay, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The vinyl fence, 6 foot high. It's going to be surrounded by bollards that are going to be very well anchored. And the construction is going to be very strong. We're going to meet all the building code requirements for this construction. And that's how far I'd like to go with this.
It's in the same location that they told us, in the back of the building, the corner over here.
Are they putting 2 spots there? Is it A and B?
There is, so
But I
if
only
you,
see,
so when this was originally approved way long ago.
Yeah.
There was a patio area that was planned.
Right.
In the front of the building, not in the front, but on the Water Street side for St. Mary's
They're very huge.
people to be able to go outside to eat, and have lunch outside. So they have shown that on here. That's, if you look at the plan, you'll see the enclosure here at the back, and then one up in the front.
This has been discussed in the early days in St. Mary's when COVID was around us. COVID is back, I guess.
So they're putting
They went some outside areas to eat and get some fresh air.
4 tables with the attached chairs, I guess.
Can we talk about this? I don't,
I believe it was when the building was first being looked at, way back when.
I thought we just approved this one.
You're saying with the original approval of the building,
With the
it
original,
included that patio.
right, that was before
The
my
whole
time.
building. Oh, okay.
So the purpose of this is just put a fence enclosure around that patio that's already approved.
I think he's just showing us what it's doing.
Well, we required under the special permit for the 46-bed unit, the pad to come back for the patio.
Well, no, I understand that piece. That piece makes perfect sense. I remember that
Yeah.
whole discussion. It's this St. Mary's patio that I'm not understanding how it fits into this discussion.
I think they're just showing they're gonna do the same thing at the same time.
And if required, we come back again and show you what we do with St. Mary's enclosure. It's gonna be a very similar enclosure. It's in the front end of the building. You know, we can come back on that another time. Right now, we're just looking at the enclosure for the 46-bed facility.
Well, you did show it on.
We did show it on there, and you can also prove it, but it's gonna be, all the description of what we're using for the enclosure is the same as what we're showing on the other unit.
Commissioner, do you have any?
What about the aesthetic look of the patio? I seem to remember discussion of what it would look like aesthetically inside the patio.
Yeah, what we provided, I think, is showing the fence itself,
Mhm.
and the fence is a ornamental vinyl fence or equivalent. So if you said to us you wanted a different design than what we're showing in this picture, we'd be happy to do that too. We're just gonna pick out the nicest fence we can find that will fit with the building and, you know, so people will think it's just close. And again, the bollards all around protect that area so that, God forbid, somebody rammed it with a car, you're not gonna get it.
And the ground is the driveway or?
No, we're gonna put in a patio, and we have a very detailed description of how deep we're going with the new patio. It's gonna go down, I think, could be 1.5 feet. I can't really see the small print here. Glasses on. This should have been provided. I don't know if you have that. It's on the back page of my script here.
You talk about the posts?
Yeah, it says the concrete pad, far right.
Yeah.
That's the detail of how deep they're going with the concrete and the different various materials we're gonna use so that that concrete, the pad will never go anywhere.
It's like the 8 inches of granite, 5 inches of concrete on top of that.
Correct.
And also about another 2 inches of compacted subgrade, so.
It'll just be plain concrete, won't be stamped concrete at all?
We may do stamped concrete, So it would look nice. It would look like a, you know, carry out of the flooring that's gonna be used inside the building itself. I think that's what everybody likes nowadays, so we'll probably end up doing that. In such a small area, it's gonna be a gigantic cost increase, but yeah, I'd go with that.
Anything else?
For the enclosure that's the restricted enclosure. Same area. That would be, because the posts, I mean, if somebody has a mental break or something and they try to get out of this space, I know the enclosure is there, but these posts are down how far? It looks like that looks like the posts are the panels are 6 feet tall with,
3.5 feet, I think, to go into the ground. The bollards you're talking about?
yeah, well, see, the hole shows a 3 foot depth even, but then the actual post shows probably another, I don't know, close to a foot less than that. So it actually looks like it's penetrating about 36 inches, but maybe anywhere from 2 feet to 2.5 feet in. Is that kind of, I don't know anything about a post for restraint versus just simply there to look pretty. I mean, is that sufficient?
The specs, I'm sorry, the specs are designed to prevent a car from going through them. So we follow the specs that whatever the manufacturer recommended, and they have to be in keeping with your building code. So that whatever we install for the bollards, and I don't know if we showed that on the.
No, it wasn't the bollard, it's the actual fence.
Oh, the fence post itself?
Yeah,
Yeah, those are not to prevent anything going through. The bollards themselves, and you'll see on the diagram.
Yeah, it's on the last page as well.
Right, they'll show how they go around that whole area. So they'll be very well protected. And I can assure you that on the St. Mary's side, we will also have the bollards surrounding that area.
Access to the patio is only from the inside.
Only from the inside, and anytime anyone is out in that area, it will always be accompanied by someone from the clinic.
You're talking about the restricted area, not the same area.
The restricted area, St. Mary's is, they'll go out there for lunch, the nurses or the doctors will go out there and on their own.
And that's, I just saw the access indicators there, so people will come and go. I just want to make sure we're talking about this.
Anything else?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Ned here. So just to review quickly, so the requirements of the special permit, they do require the fencing. You're looking at it from 2 points of view. One is the compliance with the special permit requirements for fencing. Number two, you're looking at the aesthetic part, and I think one commissioner mentioned that. Remember, this is in downtown district, so I think the materials, the color, should be something that the commission should look at, because it is right in the heart of the downtown district. That's something that your commission has the power to review.
So is there something more specific that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, I heard some a presentation involved the white vinyl fencing. So does the commission want to see white? Does the commission want to see something other than vinyl? Remember, you're in the downtown district, so you have authority to rule on the design and the materials as the board. So, and I think sounds like the applicant is willing to. It sounds like the applicant. I don't want to put words in Mr. Lombard's mouth, but it sounds like he's willing to accommodate the commission's.
I would suggest we color the fence the accent color of the building. So whatever the accent color is, so it blends with the building, we can make it the same color as, so that the building and the accent portion match the fence itself, and it won't stick out.
What is the accent color? Sorry.
I'm not crazy about a white fence either, I don't think it's
White is,
I mean, it looks like it's almost a yellow and a beige.
It's like a cream,
beige, right?
cream beige.
Which we can do that, we'll get a chip of the paint, and we'll match that fence to the same color. But I would ask you to put that in your approval, so that we, when we have the contractors come out there, they know exactly what their marching orders are.
Put that as a condition.
Okay, with the 6-foot fence. Yeah, okay. With the St. Mary's lot, it's not.
What do you think?
I'm just imagining driving down Maple and seeing the beach fence.
Oh, you're gonna see what people said.
It's a very weird. Is there, can we also maybe request some sort of planting on the corner of that fence? That way it breaks it up a little bit.
That's,
We could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to, if we could put some sort of bush planting, you know, that's 3 to 4 feet. Just, you know, one on each side of the corner, one on the corner, don't quite know. From a steps point of view, but something that'll sort of take the attention away from it into this point that if the fence is beige, it's got a couple of plantings in front of it it'll take the eyes away from the fencing and I think it'll look a little bit sharper. Maybe on each side of the gate going in and out, just the home gate, you know.
You okay with that?
I'm fine with that. Once the borough's through with the work on Maple Street, we really don't know. I know they're doing some sidewalk work.
Yeah.
And then since the flood, I don't know how that affected the trees and everything we had planted with the original construction. We'd have to just take a look at that and kind of restore what was there and go back to the original plan. And around that, obviously, we can put bushes that would grow high enough for you not to see the fence anymore. It's just, that just takes time. It takes a little time. We'll get something more in a mature state that will go pretty fast.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the patio enclosure plans for the 2 patios for the property located at 58 Maple Street, applicant Heritage Downtown LLC with the following conditions. Stamped concrete for the patio, both locations, and the beige, what would you call the color?
Beige.
Is it beige?
Beige.
Matching building.
Matching building.
Matching
Matching the building, then you got.
Slash beige.
Right.
And then add 2 or 3 plantings of bushes along the fence
On the St. Mary's side.
on the St. Mary's side.
So
but not this side.
that's on the back of the building, it's not something that
There may not be room either.
they're going right, if you look at it, they go right to the edge of the parking lot, that's
Yeah.
all going to be paved, so there's, you know, there's really nothing to do there, plus, like I said, it's on the back, and I'm thinking more of anyone that comes into town, you know, if they're leaving by, they're into town, let's welcome them, you know.
Yeah.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks very much.
All right, so. Do you want to open your
Yeah, why don't we go back to old business, okay? Is David,
Is he here?
oh, he's on, okay, so what we gotta do is, David, we're gonna be promoting you to panelist.
So we're gonna go to old business A, commission discussion decision for special permit application for the, oh, wait a minute.
Well, you guys start the public hearing. Well, we got to.
Yeah, go back to, just reopen public hearing. Reopen. 6:05, yeah. Could reopen the public hearing, 6:05, special permit application to remove up to 1,000 cubic yards of earth material to build a new house for the property located in 229 City Hill Street application. I don't see it.
Michael.
Oh, it's Michael Sanchez. Yep. Public hearing open 6:18:25, must close 7:22:25. Less extension is requested. I think we extended it.
So I think it's because he's on his.
29
All right, Dave, you're us there?
David, we're gonna allow you to talk. Usually, we have to. He's on there, so you would have to unmute yourself, David. Okay.
Are you,
David, are you there?
hello?
Yeah, okay, we were able to hear you, so, okay, you can start, Michael.
All right, so, after the last hearing that I was here, there was some concerns on the, removal of the dirt from the property, right? So, I engaged my engineer, we had some conversations with Jim, my contractor, on how is that gonna be done, and I think, we came up with a plan that is not gonna impact or hurt anyone in terms of removing the dirt from the property. And at the same time, the engineer has made sure that the plan that we presented is gonna be something doable in order to construct the wall, right? The construction of the wall. So I think if you Jim have any questions on that regard, again, I have the engineer here to speak for the technical details. If you have any questions, other than that, I think
Yeah, the question is, we thought you were gonna submit some revised plans.
yeah, so we have that, we finalized, some of that, this afternoon. But, I think, I don't know, we're mixing things up here, but we're, working on the removal of the dirt, and the revised plans will be applicable in case we decide to, make any changes on the structural design of the wall, right? So, yeah, we are, after we made some of the digging there for the footings, we encountered a bunch of ledge on the property, right? And, we're gonna be revising the plans based off, of that new discovery.
So do you have the plans?
Yeah, I have some preliminary plans, that I can share, rights I can potentially share on the screen here.
So we're going to go to the panelist. So David is your engineer?
Yeah.
Last name? So David, we're gonna need your name and what company you work for.
Yes, my name is David Amara with Amara Associates.
Is that host number? Sure. We're facing the property from the top. If you want to shrink this part, that'd be awesome, but close up. We just got these, finished a few hours ago, so that's why. So that's what these changes are. The details here for how it's gonna be put together. I'm gonna be putting a, cement there, and then on top of that, we're gonna do the blocks going all the way up. So you can see this section here is the ledge. It's gonna be the geogrid and all the things specified on the top corner here. And we're gonna have some geogrid based on the calculations the engineer made all the way to the back.
So you're putting in a cement column there? Is that what I'm seeing? You're saying a cement column and then the block wall will be in front of that? What is this right here?
A reinforced concrete wall.
Yeah, that's, that was.
And then you're gonna face it with the block.
It's gonna be crushed on
And then
here,
you're gonna,
crushed on here, and geogrid over here, and that's how it's gonna go. And then we start here because the ledge stops here based on the division that we made, so we're gonna start with the geogrid from there.
how thick is that soil section?
One above the ledge,
Yes.
I'm uncertain about that, but I believe the height of the wall is gonna be right at the edge of that. I'm uncertain how much is from here to here, because this is the
Yeah, I
end of it. So, and it slopes that way, so we're at the edge of that dirt.
And where are you excavated to now?
We made a preliminary digging here, so we can get what's the shape of the ledge here, the shape of the ledge here.
So you gotta go back further.
I don't have to, no, because I'm gonna go build it, this is the ledge here, so.
So you're dug back to the ledge now.
Yeah, I'm not back to the ledge where it's supposed to be, this is gonna be geogrid. And I don't know what measurement this is gonna be here, because it's kind of hard to see, but this is.
Well, your engineer's on the phone, why can't he answer those questions?
Yeah, Dave, can you, I don't,
Could you repeat the question, please?
what is the distance in between the ledge and the cement block, cement wall?
I can't see it. It says about 2.5 feet roughly
There you go.
at the bottom.
Better. 2.5 feet is the distance in between.
Ultimately, the building inspector is gonna approve the structural stability of the wall. And he's gonna look to their engineer to certify that it's built properly. I'm only concerned with, and what I asked for is a profile of the excavation. How they're gonna dig it before they start putting in the wall, so we can confirm that they're not gonna have the same issue we had
Well, there's ledge there.
on the ledge, above the ledge. Right now, it's pretty steep, it's already starting to come down.
Yeah,
So the question is what I wanted is on the profile of the retaining wall, a line saying, yeah, we're gonna cut back at a 1.5 to 1 off the.
2 to 1, that's gonna be the cut, I believe, based on what, I asked contractor to join, but he explained to me fairly well how is that gonna be done, it's gonna be like 2 to 1, he's gonna leave it at 2 to 1.
So if that's great, and then I was asking for a limit of excavation on the plan, so we can see how far it is, and then we obviously need to say, we have to see the plans, you know, before we can
Yeah,
approve
I
it,
can
so.
bring copies, I think the town already has them, but I can bring copies of the plans.
We
The
have
site,
the plans?
No, we don't have anything, you didn't give it to us. This plan, you didn't give this to us.
no, this is new, this is.
Well, yeah, we
just came out.
need the new things of what you're now proposing to do.
I believe the site plans are not changing in terms of where the wall is gonna be placed. Where it's changing, is some of the design of it, and, from there, we are explaining how is that gonna be done. We're saying we encounter ledge from there, up above, the contractor, find that it's a minor risk or any type of liability just to do it because it's all the way up and it slopes flat. So that's the way that it's looking like right now. And that's what the plans are showing, I believe.
Yeah, so I would suggest you ask for another extension and get us a set of plans so we can review them, and then at the next meeting, we'll act.
Agreed.
Yes.
The challenge is the site plan is not complete without the site plan we have, doesn't have anything about it. That's where we're running into the problem. The engineer, objectively, he has to review that. And he can't do it from a screen, so our hands are kind of tied on this one.
Also, has your engineer been able to recalculate the amount of material that will be removed from the property? Right now, it was stated that it was 1,000 cubic yards. That's what's on the application. What is the new amount?
You were saying that.
Well, thinking is not a good enough answer. The engineer should be able to tell us that.
Well, Scott Myers,
So just to be clear, everybody, again, David Amara, structural engineer of record. The town, your town has already reviewed site plan approval from the civil engineer, and the civil engineer that did the wall layout and the home layout is the one that, provided that information to fill out the application. My role, our office's role, is for the structure. Therefore, if you were waiting for me to comment on the cubic yards, I'm not in a position to do that. Just to be clear, I wanted to make sure everyone's clear on that, so no one's thinking that I'm, supposed to maybe be answering that.
Are you the one who's gonna decide how the slope of the soil above the rock, how steep that's got to be cut back to be in the same condition?
We have our role again as structural engineer for the structural retaining wall was to design the wall to the conditions that are there. We took the slope and we designed it to the slope that's there. The contractor is in process or will be in process of regrading that to a specified slope that's appropriate and safe for the home, Michael, and the property. I can't speak to that necessarily.
That's on the drawings? That's on your
Probably
drawings?
going to. No, we have a grade based on the topography from the civil engineer, which was Myers Associates. He had grading on the plan, and we follow that, and that's how we were able to determine the inclined slope to design the wall. And what typically happens is during the excavation process, which is a means and methods, the contractor will open up, expose for the wall to be placed in there, and then during the backfill procedure, he matches a line. He usually matches the grade that is existing today.
Yeah. The issue that we have is the building inspector apparently doesn't care about means and methods, so we have to.
Okay, that's fair.
That's the issue that we have. Since you're up against neighboring properties, you need to know how much the bank is going to be cut back so that that wall can be put in safely without impacting the neighbor's property. So without any information on that, it's going to be difficult to approve. So whether that's you or Scott Myers or a soils engineer or geotechnical.
Wouldn't that be more like the means and methods from the contractor?
Someone's got to put it on a drawing or submit something that we can look at.
Well, a statement from the contractor with some steps on that top portion will work.
And you can submit what you like, and we'll take a look at it.
We'll want to make sure I submit something that is going to suffice your what you're looking for.
Well, I told you what I'd like to see, which is something, I assume on Scott Meyer's drawing, what the finished excavation is gonna be before you start building the wall. Because after meeting with your contractor, I don't have confidence that,
Best solution.
planning on building it safely.
Plenty out of the water.
This is certainly much better, and because rock obviously makes me feel more comfortable, but you still have the soil profile above. And if that soil profile is straight up above the top of the rock, which is what it is now, he's gonna be underneath there, building a concrete wall.
Well, right now it's not like
It's
straight up.
pretty straight up. When I was there, sand was coming down the side.
Is it worse than over here, than the hot dog stand?
I don't know, it's that, no, it's not that, bad. It was still, sand was
Wow.
coming down, so.
It's been sloped a little bit more, for the same safety.
People just going in circles there. We need to get these guys in here. This paperwork.
But again, I would suggest you get an extension and we can meet with your engineer and Scott Myers again and tell him what we need.
And you need to get the information to us prior to the meeting, not after the meeting.
Well,
Because then we don't have a chance to review it.
we were working on a pretty tight schedule here because, in order to make some of the, excavation there to find out where the ledge limits were, it took some time for them to just open up this rock, so that was the issue. So as soon as we got that, I got my engineering team moving forward on to, reviewing that and getting that put together. We're working as fast as we can.
But it's gotta close after the next public hearing, correct? And
Yes.
That's it. So you get another extension, and then if it's not ready, then we can't have another extension after that. They've gotta close the public hearing and vote. So you only have one more meeting.
Okay.
So do you understand what you need?
Our suggestion would be is you have Scott Myers come to explain.
Well, he should meet with us prior, make sure everything's done proper, get it to us early enough so we can tell the commission that it's all good, and it can be a 30-second issue.
Okay.
And I think we've been clear all along, this is a huge slope, we wanna make sure that it's safe.
I think safety is my top priority when I'm working on the project. I don't want to get hurt, nor myself, nor anyone, right? So.
But I think you've learned a lot, because you've now found out that there's rock there, and you've modified your drawing, so that's gonna save you time in the long run. So if you dug it out, you have to redesign it anyway.
Somewhat. Alright, so, yes, the extension, try to get out some more information, see if this can get approved for the next, hearing.
So, when is this thing up?
We have enough time.
Oh.
He'll be using all of his extension time, because the next meeting is 35 days from now.
Okay.
And 35 plus his 29 that he's used, he has 65 days, so he'll be within.
Okay.
So we'll you should,
Just continue, we're gonna continue the public hearing,
till 6:05.
to 6:05 on, September 24th. All right.
All right, so it will be on the next meeting on September 24th.
We'll reach out to you, Jim, to get some date and times to meet with engineer and probably Scott Myers and the contractor to get a three-way alignment. Yep, that works, and then hopefully we can close it next week, the next year.
Yeah, and Jim's the one that's going to go over the drawing. So that's why, to get the information to him as soon as possible, so we can review it, talk to him about what he sees or what he's,
Yeah,
they can explain
get
it.
us those drawings, so we can start to look at them and then be prepared for that meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, so so let's go to new business. Commission discussion decision for soil and erosion site plan for the property located at 402 Hillside Avenue. Applicant Andrew Finley.
Andrew Finlay, 402 Hillside Avenue, representing Jennifer Finlay.
Sorry about that. So we're yesterday, Mr. Finley dropped off the plans to us for his proposed soil and erosion control plan. And Jim Stewart was able to go over it today. I got this myself just back from Jim at roughly 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'll allow Jim to go over it. You can go over any questions. I did provide you a copy so you can follow along. I provided you a copy of the soil and erosion control plan that was turned into us.
We received this yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so my review was hasty today to complete it for the meeting, but in my opinion, it doesn't meet the standards that are required. Just to go over, I don't want to go too briefly, but the property you're having is obviously completely stripped. There's been a little bit of stabilization in the front yard. But most of the issue comes from the south, from the neighboring property down a water course, intermittent water course, and during heavy rains and floods. So on this plan, they proposed a new swale be put in. Detail is not adequate to figure out how it's going to be built. Doesn't meet the standards. It's directed to a trench that's built with old sidewalk panels, directed then to a small catch basin yard drain. So you're draining, or you're directing a large amount of runoff to this yard drain, and then whatever doesn't go in there is getting directed into the street. So I expect that's going to be overflowing quite often. And there's no proposed sediment control at that basin. On the other side of the property, the applicant has dug in a dirt driveway coming up. That driveway is exceeding 20% grade. It's proposed to be a dirt gravel, and it's directly below the catch basin from above the water course. That thing overflows regularly. They haven't proposed any improvements to that catch basin. The catch basin, when we went up there and inspected it, was clogged. So that's causing a lot of the problems. And my fear is that catch basin is going to continue to overflow, and it's going to be concentrated now down that driveway, and the surrounding water is also going to be down the driveway. And then further, they have excavated along the property line and made slopes that are greater than 2 to 1 as shown on the drawing, and that exceeds what the grading, as far as I understand and Ed understands, along the property line. You can't do that much grading along the property. He's shown a boulder wall, which would need to get approved by the building official. He's got no self fence in the front of the building, front of the property. I'm suggesting that he put additional silt fence behind this swale, because obviously if that bank is eroding, it's going to go into the swale. It's going to fill the swale with dirt, clog everything up, and then he's got no schedule of work which is required. He's got only existing contours, as far as I can tell, on the plans. They don't exactly match what is existing because he's terraced the front yard, but they don't look terraced here, so I'm not sure that it is the existing contours. But he doesn't show what his proposed contours are going to be. So
if he's, you know, if you say they're not gonna do any more grading on the site, then that's one thing. But I'm pretty sure he's gonna be doing, because he's installing a swale, and the contours don't line up to what they have to be if you're actually putting a swale. It shows working the right of way, obviously, that's out of the scope of this approval, that's gonna have to be reviewed by the engineering department, and I haven't had a chance to review all that to get approved. As I talked earlier, they're proposing intermediate riprap, which is 18-inch rocks in this swale. So that swale's gotta be 27 inches thick, not 12 inches thick. So you may wanna look at using smaller stones, because I don't think you're gonna be going to 27 inches thick with 18-inch rocks that whole way. And I'm suggesting that we also get a bond estimate for it and set a bond in the end. And then they refer to the wrong set erosion control standards. These are all, you know, things that I was hoping we would get this plan a couple weeks ago. Gotten it all worked and all the plans up to snuff, and then have them approved. But at this point, I don't think you can approve them in the condition they're in. Be returning. So you have the copy. Did you provide this to Scott Myers? Did you send it to him yet? I have not. Okay, so we'll send this to Scott Myers, your engineer that did the plan, and you can discuss that with Scott in regard to the comments that have been made.
So you said that all the water that's coming off of the runoff water from up on top, that water was always coming down for years and years. Of course,
Yes.
everybody here knows water always came down there. And that catch basin that you're talking about, that was always installed. I did not install that catch basin.
True.
So what I'm trying to say, for years and years and years, it was always working until Andy Finley came by, and now it's no good. And the second thing is, if you do look on your road, on the road cutoff, he is suggesting to put a double catch basin, so it does take up some more water, which I suggested over a year ago to you, and you still don't do nothing about it. You still say you have to take care of it, Jim. I don't understand why the town isn't giving me any help.
You're
I
correct.
just don't know.
You're correct. It's always been a issue with that catch basin clogging and overflowing up the street. But there wasn't an issue with all the silt and sediment washing off because the property wasn't excavated.
It wasn't excavated.
Okay, but still, the water was still running down. Jim. It still was coming from somewhere. I didn't put the water there. Mother Nature dumps the water
I'm
out.
not saying you did. I'm
Not me.
saying you excavated the property and you caused the problem with silt and erosion and all that. And now you gotta figure it out. You guys figure out how to.
We just submitted you how we're gonna
Yeah.
figure it out. You're saying it's no good.
No.
It's more than what was there. It's plenty more than what was there. I really don't get this. I don't get this at all. And now we have no time left. No time, and we have to get the yard going. We're gonna lose the growing season again. I'm gonna be here next year again under fire. Same thing,
I don't know how
over and
much
over
time
and
you
over
had.
again.
You had-
I can't do anything. I could barely cut my yard. You won't let me do a thing in there. This is total nonsense. It's total nonsense. Let's just finish it and move on. I don't understand why you have to nitpick every little thing on myself and my son. I don't understand that.
Because I have to ultimately, and that's another thing, it doesn't have the certification, I have to put my name on this. I have to sign this to the commission, okay, saying it's approved.
It's not a new construction house. The lot was always there. I don't have a retaining wall that's gonna be built on the side of a hill that's gonna get washed out up on City Hill. Everybody knows that was a stupid move up there. And here you go, there was already a house there, Jim. It has nothing to do with new construction. It is what it is. I really don't get this. Chairman, I really don't get it. You walk by my house every day. You see what I do out there every day. You see when it rains, when I'm up against. You see I can't get up my driveway. My wife can barely get up that driveway, and she has a bad back. What else do we have to get an ambulance up there, Jim? You won't let me do nothing. I can't even pave it? Total ridiculous. I'm fed up to here with you and this project. So let me tell you what, I suggest everybody should get on board here and really do something. And if you want to keep on coming after me, we gotta go to court on Monday, Tuesday, and we'll see what the judge has to say, because I can't wait. I really can't. I hope he hammers you again. What do you think of it?
All right, I mean, let's. You know what Jim says, what, we have to follow the guidelines. You guys are going back to court when? Monday, Tuesday, next week?
Next week, 26th.
I mean, see what, we have to go by what Jim says. See what the judge says at court, and I don't know what else to tell you.
All right, I'll take it to the judge. No problem. Thank you very much.
I like to use a drink.
Not an easy job.
Good job, Jim. I like that. Good your ground.
Yeah, well, basically, it's built on an existing foundation, not a new construction.
All right, so, we got old business B, commission discussion about potential smoke shop regulations.
Save that for next one.
It's a good person to put up now.
Mr. Chair, would it be possible if I stand, I herniated the disc in December and I'll do better if I can.
Stand
She unplugged this before.
I did.
Don't
step on any cords.
I'm good.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. So I gave everyone a packet, I have a manila folder in front of you. I'll walk you through the different materials that are in it. But the first thing I want to draw your attention is a presentation. That's what we're going to be walking through today. It's one of those where it prints it this way, so I'm sorry it's a little wonky on the print.
You have a manila folder.
Yes. We'll get into the discussion. So again, thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. I'm Savannah Nicole Bielba. I'm the Community Planning Director at NBCOG. I just want to thank you for taking time to discuss how to regulate smoke shops through zoning with me today. So with that, we'll jump straight into the conversation. Go to the next slide, which is the overview slide. So by the end of tonight's discussion, you'll have a better understanding of who we are as NBCOG, how Naugatuck Zoning Commission can use zoning to regulate smoke shops, how our technical assistance process functions, and then there'll be time for questions and answers. You can stop me at any point during the presentation. I'm comfortable with being stopped, but just know that there'll be time at the end if you want to save your questions for that point. So we'll go to the next slide. Who is NBCOG? I apologize. I know that I've been in front of you before, but we've gotten a new presentation and I have to do this in all of them. So I'll keep it brief, but as many of you know, we're a voluntary association of 19 municipalities, which the Borough of Naugatuck is a part of. We're a state-designated regional planning organization and a federally designated metropolitan planning organization. That's just a fancy way of saying we help with transportation, environment, housing, land use, planning, and implementation efforts. Over the last year, NBCOG has assisted the borough in a variety of ways, including expansion of the design of the Naugatuck River Green Bank from Greenfield North to Waterbury. We've helped work on upgrades to the drainage system around Highland Avenue, and then we've also helped with the improvements with Rubber Avenue through our LASA program. So I'm with you today, but our staff are with the borough in many different ways. Our board consists of the 19 chief elected officials that are on the map to the right. Mayor Hess is your representative on our board, and he's also the chair of our board. I always just like to clarify how we're different than the borough. As residents, property owners, and business owners, you are Naugatuck's constituent. So the borough works closely with you on how to decide what policies to implement. You implement policies yourself, how to spend the borough's money, or how to govern the community. At the COG level, Naugatuck is our constituent. So we work with your chief elected official to decide what policies, plans, and programs we work on. And while our work often does have direct effects on you as residents, our governance structure means that Mayor Hess is your representative and how we function at our model of government. I'll get that short. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next slide. We're gonna get to the conversation about zoning to regulate smoke shops. The conversation today is meant to be more high level, talk about what you can do and what the process could look like. It's gonna play into the memo that you previously received from me that went to land use staff. So we're just gonna briefly talk through this process. You have many ways to draft a regulation. Sometimes a community will review adopted regulations from other municipalities to create a regulation that works for your commission and your community. In the best case scenario, you find a draft regulation in a municipality that exactly fits what the borough needs. It's easy to modify and you're off to the races. But other times, you may need to take a patchwork approach, pulling different elements from different regulations or starting from scratch to build the regulation that's right for your commission and your community. We think that there are a few steps that go into drafting a regulation that we recommend that we're going to talk through today. The first step is to define the associated uses, which we're going to briefly talk about more tonight. The second recommended step is determining the regulatory process. So there's many ways you can zone for smoke shops. We'll talk about the two most common ones. The third step we recommend is ground truthing. There's a lot of really important people, including your current smoke shops, the borough's attorney, the mayor and board of burgesses, that you might want to involve in these sorts of conversations. Some communities involve their school resource officers. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then it's the process, the notice of adoption and then implementation of your regulation. So we'll head to the next slide. So as we just said, the recommended first step of the discussion is to really think about the terms you want to include in your zoning regulation. Common terms that are defined often in smoke shop regulations are smoke shop, vape shop, tobacco product, vaporizer. Those are the main four we often see when we're looking at examples. We created a memo that I just brought up, but I also included it in your packet. Lori and Ed told me that they had previously shared it with you, but this was based on some of the direction we received from the mayor about what you could do as a regulation that he wanted to put forth for you all. So that's something that you have from us. And in this memo, we articulated a variety of definitions that we found from examples throughout the state of Connecticut. We're going to briefly talk about two today, not in detail to set policy, but to kind of show you what the conversation would look like if you jumped into it further. Okay, so the first one, we have smoke shop. We have the smoke shop definition on that blue blob on the right side. We're on this slide now. It's common for smoke shop definitions to define a percentage of the retail area that's allotted to tobacco and tobacco products, because that establishes a threshold for when a retailer actually becomes a smoke shop. We've had previous conversations with the zoning enforcement officer, and we're going to look at the map a little bit later, but the way that the state licenses for smoke retailers is, I think it's just based on who's doing it, not necessarily what retail area they're taking. So there's Stop and Shop, and there's some of these uses that you want to associate as a smoke shop on the list of licensed retailers, but they're not really trying to regulate in this. So if you went through and said, 5%, 10%, 20% of the retail floor area, you're making sure that Stop and Shop's not 10% of the retail floor area that's dedicated to it. It's really that definition and the percentage is a place where the commission has a lot of power to set the regulation.
And just want to tell you, that's where I was having a little bit of confusion. I said, we're not looking at every single, we're not looking at Cumberland Farms. necessarily. We're not looking at Stop and Shop, Big Y, the regular gas stations, that they have a smaller percentage of their floor dedicated to their tobacco product, shall we say. And
Yeah,
now that I understand that a bit more, I can see it. You know, that we're not trying to entail Stop and Shop coming in and saying, okay, you've got to get this approval. Because they have, you know, when you look at Stop and Shop, they have a small area associated with it. So we may want to look at setting our percentage number, 20, 30%, 40% of floor space. We're looking specifically at the tobacco stores. You know, more than just the gas station that has cigarettes behind the counter. As the ones that we're having issues with.
and we also acknowledge that it's dependent on the retail area. 1,000 square foot retailer is gonna have a lot more of that 10, that 20, that 30% they can dedicate. Then your 10,000 square foot or your convenience store, it's gotta be like, so they're not big.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a geography conversation when you're getting into that percentage. I'd recommend like putting out examples, say if you say 40 and you're thinking about if it's 100 square foot, how much it really is that. If it's a 2,500 square foot, you want to know what those numbers are so you get a better idea when different businesses are coming in. We're going to get to the ground truthing piece where this comes out, but like you can call Stop and Shop and Big Y and see what you may already know what their retail square footage is, so we can work backwards on who you have. You can ask how much they have, so you can get a number that makes sense for the borough. So that's one place where a commission has a lot of power. We'll go to the next slide. I think that I got flagged by my IT person today because I was looking up all sorts of different products.
Oh boy, did they?
So I'm learning a lot, and I think that if you work on regulation, you'll learn a lot as well. The definition that I found for tobacco product is pretty long. It's in that packet. It's a hefty definition. So you may want to look through all of the listed products, some which I included on the slide. So the e-pipe, the rolling papers, the vape. I learned about snuff today. They're all in this really big definition, and so you may want to decide if you want to clearly articulate all of the uses that you would include in a tobacco product, or you want to have a conversation with Attorney Fitzpatrick about how you really want that definition to work. Are you making an all-encompassing list, or are you finding a way to broadly categorize so that you have space of discretion to say, like, yes, that is a tobacco product, no, that isn't. And we also think that your zoning enforcement officer is a ground truther in it as well, because you want a regulation that your staff can actually implement. And so I think there's a lot of power in the tobacco product definition as well. So that's all we're going to just talk about briefly today in terms of terms. We didn't get into vape shop or vaporizer, but you really want to agree on the terms and the definitions that you're including, because that's how you ensure what you're trying to regulate is what your regulations actually say. And so a lot of times when you're just taking the regulation that's come from someone else, if you're not looking at the definition and, yes, sorry.
Oh, it's okay, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, that's why I had my hand up. So snuff is absolutely a tobacco product. The one you have here is not. This is a
Sorry.
tobacco. So this one is meant, and don't ask me how I know. This one is meant to help people that take care of the oral fixation without actually taking any nicotine.
Yeah.
Is that something?
So it's Nicorette?
Basically, it's Nicorette for people that do snuff.
Yeah.
But is that something that's part of this? That these, because this is literally completely tobacco. There's no tobacco, there's no nicotine. Is that part of that effort that we're trying to regulate?
So I owe you a coffee then, because you led us into a good conversation. In the smoke shop definition, some of them talk about nicotine. And so when you don't read the regulation, if you don't read the terms carefully or talk about them, you could have accidentally regulated for nicotine. And if that's not the goal of what you're trying to do, like that's why working on a regulation in a step-by-step way really makes sure that you don't end up with good stuff. I'm not sure how to describe it, but the good stuff, you know what I mean, doesn't get regulated out.
Well, the reality is most of these stores may have that as a product in their store, and it may represent a small amount of floor
I mean,
shelf space.
it could very well, depending on how, to her point, depending on how we regulate it here, they could be at, making this all up, they could be at 18%. And our limit's 20, but if this is in the regulation, it bumps them to 20%. If it's not in the regulation, they're at 18. I mean, there's multiple, and it's not just, I just happen to notice this one, but there's all sorts of other substitutes that people can use that a lot of stores sell as well. So they could actually have, again, making all this up, 5% of their sale being, 2% of their sale being tobacco-free, nicotine-free products, substitutes, that if we include them, puts them at that threshold. If we do not, it does not. So that's the reason I'm asking the question.
Very good, yeah.
And those are the type of things, that's why, like, I know the process sounds silly because it's like, it's part of what you do and how you regulate, so it's implicit. But I like when I come to commissions, just like really spelling it out back to the basics, because it's easy to miss these 3 steps at the beginning. It's easy to just send your staff and say, give me a draft regulation. You trust your staff, and without like really breaking into the conversations, you end up with this type of memo that says, hey, this is what we found, this is what we recommend, which isn't bad. It's a process that works sometimes, but if you have specific policies you're trying to set, and that's the goal of the regulation, a slowed down, more phased approach, make sure that you're all happy with what you get at the end of it. So that today, I had a short amount of time, so I just wanted to illustrate like 2 examples of what that could look like. So we're going to move on from the defining the use part of the conversation, and we're just going to briefly touch on the 2 key ways that people regulate smoke shops. The first one is that many communities prohibit the use in specific zones. Milford and Orange prohibit smoke shops across all zoning districts. Westport, sorry, I have it in your packet, if you give me 1 second. Milford does a full prohibition. This is.
So there's no vape stores in Milford?
They're there, but they're non-conforming now, so they're not permitting for any more.
Oh.
And so we will talk about non-conformity just briefly today, but that's another piece of the conversation. So you guys are tapping on exactly the types of things that would be discussed. There's one community, I may not have included the example, but someone set a moratorium instead of prohibiting the use, but I also included 3 examples in your packet, so you have draft language that other communities have adopted. But when you also decide, are you going to do a full prohibition in all of your zoning districts? Do you still want to allow it in certain districts? That's a conversation, and that's a conversation a commission should have. The goal is totally just to prohibit across the board. It's an easy way to go about it. But if it's not, and the goal is to still allow them, we're going to go on to the next slide, the funky orange circle map. Another way that you can regulate, if you're not setting the uses and then prohibiting them in certain districts, is that you can establish distance requirements. You're able to get the list of all of the licensed electronic nicotine delivery systems, retailers, and Naugatuck. And we've also included that in your packet for you today. We reached out. There was an organization that came to NBCOG because they were interested in youth and vaping, and they showed an example of Naugatuck, and that's where the mayor heard about it. And I think that it was a conversation the commission was interested in, but he brought to the land use staff's attention and to my attention to kind of help facilitate the discussion. But we actually are in contact with the organization that got the information, and we figured out where they got it from. It came from the state of Connecticut e-license website, and I think that Ed and Lori will CC'd on how to get this information. So Ed has the email that he can share, like the process the woman wrote it out for, if you wanted to look for yourself. But this is the list of those licensed retailers that's on the e-license state of Connecticut website. And as we briefly had some conversations, it sounds like everyone might not be on here, but it may be because they're licensed differently. So some tinkering would need to happen between commission and your staff and us on the website to make sure that we really have all of the licensed entities that you're trying to discuss and regulate. But in a community, so New Haven is the example we have, and on the slide you can see it. What they did is they set distance requirements between the uses. And so that's what those red dots are. I apologize that it's small. And then they're setting buffers for a certain distance. And so they set buffer distances for each use. And then they also set a distance for schools. So they said it had to be X thousand feet away from a school. And so if you were to go the proximity regulation route, there's still space to tinker. And that's where you'd want to know where your current retailers are, however you're defining that licensure. And then you'd want to work with Fred to look at different examples of this where you're saying, okay, if we set a 500-foot buffer for each of our current smoke shops, where would that still allow smoke shops in Yakuta? We set a 1,000-foot buffer, we set a 2,000. So you have power to mess with that, how far out the crow flies. And that's if you still want to allow it in certain places. If the goal is total prohibition, this really isn't the path to do so. But I wanted to show you the two main ways people do it. So it's defining uses, use table, or distance. Questions thus far?
So this that you provided here,
Yeah,
this is the list
that we got
that we
like
got,
yesterday.
yeah.
Yep, yeah. So
And
it's-
what I want you to do is look at this list. And I think you'll realize many of these are gas stations. So if we get into spatial issues, or say, okay, can't be within 1,000 feet, we're now potentially eliminating a gas station within that distance. We're not just the fact that they sell, but if we set it at a percentage
Yep.
of store coverage,
Yep.
they would not fall under that.
Yeah, and
So what I'm saying is if we set it at, okay, we're looking at stores that 40% of their floor space is related to smoke shops, tobacco, those categories. Well, most gas stations aren't gonna fall into that.
Why would the gas station have to go anyway? All these things that would have to be, I'm being, again, just making this up, but if we were to say, nope, none. Gas station simply pulls the product from the shelves and replaces it with some other product. I apologize, I don't understand how you're linking.
Which I
gas
understand.
stations.
But it's a big profit thing for some gas stations, and it's what you know, I don't see many gas stations that don't sell tobacco products.
Yeah, but most
convenience
gas
stores
stores are selling them at state minimums because there's tax requirements, and things, they're not a huge.
But are we doing this to then change their business plan
No,
by
understand,
making you do that? So all I'm saying is the goal of this to eliminate or limit the amount of stores that are just smoke shops? i.e. the one on Rubber Avenue, across from Rite Aid, is basically a smoke shop. Now, he does have other things in there besides that, or the one that's in Mount View Plaza, or the one that's right behind Grandpa's Restaurant. They are basically what I think that's the ones you guys were looking at, more than looking at the Citgos or the gas stations with, and that's where the amount of floor space we look at.
If they want to attract traffic, the gas stations, they say people stop for coffee and cigarettes. We can't sell cigarettes. They're gonna go.
And I understand they have the right,
Going somewhere else.
and they have the right to change
not.
product, yes, I
They
get
may
that.
not want to be here.
No, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding where we're coming from, and we're kind of talking objectively, so. Again, purely as a example, if we said no at all, the gas station doesn't go anywhere. Physically, the gas station can remain in business, they simply remove the product.
No, they don't remove the product, they're
No, they
grandfathered
gotta
in.
be, yes.
They're not conforming,
Yeah.
it's not that they remove the product. I'm saying if we set a distance of 1,000 feet, then yes, a new gas station may be limited because we could sit there and say there's another smoking thing. But I think
we don't wanna do the zero tolerance either. Maybe you do. And
I can jump in on the conversation of nonconformity, because that's the next slide, so everyone gets copy, because we're going the conversation. So I printed all of the PowerPoint slides before I was tinkering this morning, and so I apologize. I want you to look at this slide first before we look at this slide. So instead of reprinting it, I hope for my true friends in here, you're happy that I saved some. But we'll get to nonconformity, that's the fourth one, or the third one on this list. But we talked about the uses, and we're talking about the proximity versus the prohibition in your use table conversation. But there's other pieces into this, so I'll actually go to nonconforming first, so I'll go bottom up, just because that's the conversation that we're having. If you were to prohibit the use, you do need to consider the nonconformities that you're going to be creating, because every single retailer that's over that threshold becomes nonconforming. You can't get rid of them, you can't force them into abandonment, you can't amortize them. They've got a vested right that they maintain, but that's something that this commission wants to think about and consider before you get to the point of adopting a regulation. And that may be that you're asking your current smoke shops to come in and certify what percentage they're at. Because once you prohibit it, you can prevent them from expanding. You just can't stop them from whatever they're at. So say you set it at 40, but the one on Church Street is likely like 80 or 90.
correct.
They're gonna certify, and that's where Attorney Fitzpatrick is also really important in this as well, because you wanna be sure you're doing this properly legally, but you want that one to certify that before the regulation was set, they're at 80%. You can't get them down to that 40, but if they're trying to get to 100, your zoning office now has, hey, we set this regulation, you are not conforming at 80, you don't get to expand to that 100%. So that's a really big piece of this conversation that you really want to work through once you knew what that percentage is. You don't get to the non-conforming until you know what that threshold is, because we're just having a abstract conversation of, is it everybody or is it a limited group of people? So that's one of the things you might want to consider. Another thing that we've heard about from your staff and in conversations is that signage can be kind of an issue in the way that they're displaying products. And so that's another one where Attorney Fitzpatrick is important, because you can legally regulate signage. And so thinking about these LED signs or what they're showing in the display windows, but you have to be careful when you're regulating signage, because you can't regulate by the use, and then there's specific First Amendment rights about how you're regulating this. And so maybe you're setting a certain percentage of the facade can be an LED light, or you're saying a certain percentage can be product, maybe product display. But that's for all your retail, and so that's a bigger process if you really wanted to get into. It could be like a phase 2 of a smoke shop regulation, is thinking about that visual piece. But that's another piece you can regulate. And then another thing we have here is the regulations that we were looking at. Some of them included hemp and CBD into the smoke shop definitions. I thought that was kind of a stretch. I think that's a different use in and of itself. And so if you wanted to include that as a definition and kind of part of the conversation, I think it's possible, but a definition that's saying hemp and nicotine and CBD and like tobacco, it just becomes really unwieldy. And so I think that if you were going to regulate those things, you want to be clear, you want to be intentional, you want to set those definitions and then decide how you're going to be regulating them. So I hope that gets the nonconformity point.
Yeah, my only question is, the way it stated it before got me really confused. It wasn't that I'm trying to just prohibit anything or whatever, but when it comes to signage, so basically we're only reading gaudy, is what you're telling me. So if the sign is too gaudy, we can say no, but if a sign is a pot leaf or some cartoon character smoking a joint,
Yeah.
as long as it sits within whatever this thing is, we have to allow it.
You're getting into more First Amendment than you are land use, because there's Supreme Court cases, and this is, I'm only a student, this is where you really need your attorney, but like, your regulation of signage is content neutral, and so it's like color, size, like, I don't even think it's colored, but you're not supposed to read the signs. And so that's why I say like, that's kind of like signs phase 2, because it's a big process, but you can't regulate what it says.
You regulate verbiage.
Yeah, but if you are looking, like, I picked pictures all not from an architect, I looked on Google, I told you, I'm gonna get in trouble, I'm not gonna think I'm going back, because IT is gonna be mad. But like, some communities, most often you see a significant amount of LED signs associated with smoke shops. And so like, they'll set percentage requirements of, you can only have 5% of your facade be LED lights, so that it's the tiny open sign, it's not the LED around the windows or all of the different like smoke shop brand signs that they put up, you know what I mean? And so I just wanted to highlight that that's something you could regulate, but that's one that you really have to be careful with. And that's one that's, planner can only get you so far. You really need an attorney that's gonna be sure like you're doing what's legal in that space. Okay, so then, and I think this also ties into the conversation that's happening, so again, I apologize for not having them in the correct order, but thank you for bearing with me. Once you've decided on your terms and your regulatory process, or maybe for the borough would be something you'd want to do beforehand, but you could have a discussion with these, like I said earlier, you have a good rep at Stop and Shop, or you have a good manager at your big Y, prompting them to say like, what is your retail floor area? How much of it is smoke products currently? If you have some of these gas stations that are mom and pops that you get along with, prompting on these conversations only helps you later in the process, so that they're not all here at your public hearing saying, I had no idea you were doing this, or why weren't we involved in the process? And so whether you wanted to only go to your good eggs, or you wanted to invite some of your more adversarial eggs into the conversation, you could invite these parties in to ask what's currently going on in your community, so that you can make sure the regulation you set is achieving what you're hoping for. And I think that they are a big part of it. The Naugatuck community might be interested. Some communities, like I said earlier, involve their Board of Educations or their school resource officers, because they've got a perspective on this. Your borough attorney is very important, your land use staff are important, and then while zoning is a main way that people regulate smoke shops in communities, you can also do certain things via ordinance. So it can be a collaborative effort between you on the land use side regulating the use, and you and the board of mayor and burgesses just thinking about smoking and smoke uses broadly for the borough. So involving the right people in the conversation at the point that makes sense for the commission, whether it's, hey, we've got this rough outline and we want to ground truth with you, or hey, we're at the start of this process, we want to make sure we're including necessary perspectives before we begin. Both are valid, but it's really a commission's preference on, do you want them at the start, or do you want them after you've done something? I often like the second one more, because it's a lot easier to show someone something, to tell them that I like this, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, than it is to have a really free-for-all open conversation. That guiding and narrowing that you can do as a commission can really lead to productive changes to your draft regulation. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next slide. We're getting towards the end, so I hope that I've been brief. But if you were, it's unclear currently how much you're seeking to involve MDCOG in drafting a regulation. But if you as a commission and the land use staff wanted to involve us, that's something that comes from Mayor Hess. So we talked about earlier about how we organize. Your CEO makes the request to us. And then we come to an agreement with the borough through Mayor Hess about expectations and if there were associated costs depending on the effort. And this is more involved than we usually are. That's not to say that I'm not the person who decides that. So I can't really give you guidance on that specific conversation, but it's always worth, if it's something you want help with, asking and then seeing, does MDCOG have a charge? Is it feasible for the borough to utilize us? If we don't have a charge, do you even want to work with us? So that's kind of how our TA process works. A lot of commissions will motion to ask the mayor or selectmen to then ask us for assistance. But that's how that would work. So the last thing I have for you is, do you have any questions?
I can't believe we got 24 shops that sell this.
I'm coming to, well, I can see why the city of Milford just said no.
Yeah.
But you've got to look at that list.
Yeah.
Some of them are just gas stations. They're not full,
About 60% of them are gas stations.
yeah, I mean, like Smoke Plus on 727 River, that's in Mount View Plaza. Yes, I would say that's a regular smoke shop. And some are based by their names. 74 Sidmart LLC is a convenience store next to Subway. Next to Subway.
That's a smoke shop.
So, and again, I think a lot of them are adding more products perhaps to their things. So I think we want to look at, okay, how much floor space are they actually using compared to our Stop and Shops, our Big Lots, our Cumberland Farms? That
I think, because what Rick just said actually, very, very true. I started working part-time way back when that plaza first opened at AutoZone and Sid Martin and the majority of that place was a convenience store. If that's what it was. I mean, yes, it had sold cigarettes, but it was a convenience store. Last time I went in there, probably 2 years ago, a lot more than just that. So it's a very good point. By setting that threshold, we start to control what is okay and what's not. And at what point does this become, I mean, they're right outside of the school. School's not even 500 yards away. You know what I mean? We want to have somebody that's technically a smoke shop within that close proximity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these have changed because we have so many gas stations now that have pretty large convenience stores based to them, that the standard convenience store, which there's one in your neighborhood, 176 Spencer Street. He doesn't have gas there or anything, but he's been a convenient, when I lived there when I was 5 years old, it was a convenience store.
Yep.
And he's still a traditional convenience store for that neighborhood. No, I'm just saying it was a convenience store of that neighborhood, but it was a convenience store that didn't have gas. Never had gas there, I don't think. And, I don't know if I would consider it a smoke shop. I don't think, because they do enough business there. The one on top of May Street up there where Carl Herb owned, that store is probably the size of the interior of this here.
Yep.
And he doesn't sell much for, when I don't think it's open right now anymore, but they didn't have a lot of cigarettes or tobacco products in there. It was a traditional convenience store because they had the neighborhood that would walk there to get their milk, get some of the basic stuff and get their lottery tickets. I think you guys are more interested in just the shops that are, if someone came today and we sat there and said, okay, 50%, and someone came to us after we passed that and they wanted to open up a cigar store, we'd have to say no, because you're over 50%. You can't do a 100% cigar store if we set a floor amount. So someone like Stobie's, we would say no to the future. So that's why I'm saying defining all that stuff and looking at this list and say, well, how many of them are actual smoke shops 100%? And what do we limit it down to?
And I would also consider that it's not easy, it won't be easy to define exactly what percentage they are. So I would expect that if you say 20, the guy's probably gonna be 30, 40, 50 before you're gonna have to walk in there and go, oh yeah, you're 50 or 60, you're over the line. Because it's not, it wouldn't be easy to go in there and say, oh, well, 19 and a half, we got this many square feet, we measured every inch of countertop and
you're
then they're
more
gonna say,
staff.
well, no, because, I've got this other.
It's just,
But you still set yourself up where if you set that reg, it's hard to see, but if, for that egregious example that went from 20 to 40, you as a commission have a power now to call them in to say, give me a conceptual plan, show me what it is, because we don't think you're, you know what I mean, you don't have that right now, so anyone can, those five, it sounds like there was a 5% that's now a total smoke shop, and so it's helpful, I agree with Ed and I agree with Jim that you might wanna look at that list, and you might wanna tap a few people that you know are trusted partners to the borough to say, what do you think your percentage of retail of smoke products is right now? Because we're guessing, but it may be higher percentage than you think for some of these. And so by ground truthing, maybe a big one, a small one, a Stop and Shop, you know, a convenience store that you don't realize.
Is it appropriate to go and say, guess what, this guy's over the line, and go in there and look around and say, well, we don't want this kind of guy here, and measure him and say, that's it? I guess
Right
he's compliant, so it doesn't change anything.
Are you a complaint-based community?
Oh, yeah, what?
You only enforce on complaints?
Basically.
Then you know, sorry, we were asking me, but.
So I think we really gotta look at it to see exactly what we want to regulate, what's the purpose of it? And it's.
I don't think you wanna take forever, because you'll miss the ball.
But I also we don't get the phone calls like we were prior to cannabis being done with this. Prior to the state approving cannabis, we got calls all the time about vape shops wanting to open up because they fully believed they were gonna be able to sell it. They fully believed it. Their goal was to open up, get open, and then as soon as the state said, yeah, you can start selling cannabis products now, they were gonna sell, they wanted to sell cannabis. And then when the state came in and said, oh no, it's not gonna be that easy, they're closing more than they're opening. You know, there was one on North Main Street, it's gone, pharmacy's gonna go in there now, regular pharmacy, that vape shop is gone. The guy down here on Church Street, the police have been in there several times, I think they've done their good job of finding that they're selling illegal products in there, and it's basically shut down at this point. So we're not getting the calls like we used to we're getting calls potentially for maybe a convenience store or something like that, but not that much. Even the standalone convenience stores are not like they used to be.
So we have, what, 24 vape shops listed? Can we limit however many, at 24 and not allow more?
That's a question for.
Yeah.
That's what Milford did. They said, that's it.
But they didn't do it by number, they did it by no more new uses, because it's not like it's not like the liquor points where you can say you have X number, and then cannabis, like specifically empowered communities to say one for every certain percentage, but that's Attorney Fitzpatrick knows if you can say this many.
I don't think enabling legislation allows you to say that. So unlike cannabis, so I think the geographic or the distance, the proximity issues, the proximity is probably the easiest way to do it. You can do the combination, as you mentioned, the proximity and the percentage. So, but I think one said, you know, the difference between 20% and 25%, I mean, the enforcement of that's going to be very difficult. So combine those two things with a solid definition, you may go somewhere, but it's all going to depend on what the commission wants to do. I mean, if it's not straight prohibition, then what is it? No, so it merits discussion.
I think part of the thing that I think about is the signage. Signage on all these shops, just here's one, here's one, here's one. You know, vape shops. A lot of times with the pot leaf and everything else. So, I mean, I don't think it's a good look for the town when you have, you know, 5 on one street, just the sign. I kind of really don't care if you have 5% or 50% of space. The signage alone just,
But then then you get issues of content and versus we're trying to where it gets, that's where there's been case law in favor of the First Amendment. Some of the cases have been pretty clear on that. But you know, you do it by size. That's what was recommended. So it's probably the best way to do that.
Probably the size, would probably do the amount of length on the string, how many lumens those LEDs can put out. Some of those will blind the people on Mars.
that's true.
So, I mean, as long as it's completely neutral, generic statement, not what is on it,
Right,
it's fair game.
There's a person that has a derogatory flag up about Joe Biden on North Main Street. We get calls all the time about it. First Amendment years. We can't stop him from hanging. Talk to the guy. He enjoys people getting annoyed with him. That's just the type of person he is. It's unfortunate. But I will say this. These small convenience stores, these smoke shop type things, they change hands frequently. Like every couple of years or every year and a half. And they seem to be people that have moved here from suburban areas. And I think they're just used to that. And my comment to a lot of them when they come in here, like, oh, I want to open up a convenience store. They never say to me, smoke shop, but they'll say, I want to open up a convenience store. And I will tell them about the signage and lighting and stuff. I said, we are not Las Vegas. We're not New York City. We are not looking to light up like Times Square. I know you want to draw attention to your place. But I remember the one time I had to talk to a Verizon store that put up TV cameras in their windows. And I said, you can't do that. We don't allow that type of stuff in the windows. Well, I wish I knew that before we spent $14,000 on it. I said, well, you should have called us. I said, so what they did, they moved them 10 feet further back. So they weren't necessarily right. I said, well, I can understand that. But when you put them up against the front window, you're now purposely going after people outside the store because someone from inside can't see it. The digital display of a constant thing. And that was the guy that was on Rubber Avenue across from Friendly's. And it was a Verizon store. And they were like, oh, our corporate office wanted us to do it. I said, well, you can't do it right there. I'm sorry that you spent all that money on that, but we don't allow that. I've talked to many times about the stores that have the lights changing. Well, you can't do that. You have them one color all the time. Or change them every hour. Do that.
Well, Mario's changed his setup there. He was on it.
Yeah, a lot of them. I go and I talk to them.
Yeah. So,
they're all just thinking they want to do whatever. And
I live in,
it's the frustrating part of this job.
I live in the woods on Town Road. I mean, I literally have nobody around me. And yet I still see lights glowing over the top of the whole property because of all the lights we do have. So I think that part of this could be additional regulations on those types of lightings and signs and stuff. Things like there's a community, a friend of mine lives in a place called Cold Springs, Florida. They have very strict signs are not allowed to exceed 6 feet off the ground, very, very strict. So, I mean, as long as it's a standard that everybody must abide by, we've got.
Which we do have.
Yeah.
And we tell them, give me the graphics, show me the design, show me the size of it, give me the measurements. And there's times we've had to go. Michelle will tell you, I've had to go to a store and say, hey, you got too much, you can't do this. And they never came and got a permit. It's like, you got to take this down. You can't do this. You can't do it. Because most people that hire a sign company, they know they need the permit. So they'll send it to us in advance. Send me the rendering. I want to see the rendering, give me the sizes, dimensions, and all that. I don't care which, I'm not going about the wording. I can't do verbiage, but show me the dimensions.
See what you did to us?
Hey. I always come and bring some fun, right?
But I just wanted to say, I do see a decrease in the stores. And, you know, they're not calling like they used to. And there was a big difference before COVID. I mean, or before cannabis. People used to stop in all the time and ask us. And they all thought, oh, I'm gonna be able to sell cannabis.
Can't limit anything around the high school, right? Because that's such access for all the high schoolers will walk right out of the driveway.
Yeah, so I think it's a question for Attorney Fitzpatrick. I tried to look into it and there's very little. Special project.
Well, I think we'll look at that. I want to see how other communities have addressed it, and then we'll look at the enabling legislation to see to what extent we can regulate that. But I believe we can regulate the distance.
Yeah, I found Attorney Fitzpatrick, I looked into this at school and I only found one reference in case law and it looks like you can, that just no one does it that way, but don't listen to me.
It's something that we have to, whether first of all, it's allowed by the legislature because the town only has the rights that the legislature gives us for a zoning purpose. So we have to make sure it's either expressly stated or it's implied or it's a logical inference. And then the commission has to decide to what extent it wants to go that route, or you know, a prohibition of a certain area or partial, you know, and of course with the understanding of the non-conforming uses, and then the difficulty at the end is enforcement, and that's Ed pointed out some of those, and somebody else did too. This is not going to be easy to enforce if we start going into these percentages. That to me is going to be that's going to be hard to do to be effective.
So what's the plan here? Is the staff going to come up with a draft resolution on this as far as recommendations based off of this data and then review it in another meeting? Or
I don't want to be part of it because I'm kind of against it. So against another regulation. I think it's naturally happening, but you know, I'll leave it up to Lori maybe, or it might be my line and say I'm getting stressed out.
So not saying it's you're doing it, and it's your line to stand, fully understand that. What is still the next steps? Would that be, whether it's me, whether it's Lori, whoever it is, what's the next steps from this meeting? Is the plan to
We have to decide if we want to move forward with this or not. And I agree with Ed. And I think we're opening a box of Pandora's box here. I don't even know why we're chasing this.
I agree.
We have nothing to do, that we're gonna chase vape stores? No offense.
I think they're going out of business by themselves, just let them go.
What's the difference? That's my opinion.
Me too.
That's right. Sure thing.
I'm disturbed by how many we are having, especially River Avenue. I think I counted like 9 or something at one point. And again, I think about the high schoolers that are
I
walking
think we're
right
just
out.
too late. I think we're too late to change it. Do anything about it.
Well, no, you can restrict it. You can provide prohibitions or restrictions. The people that are currently in business may stay in business, but they may not. It's the question of what happens in the future if you're thinking prohibition. So I'm not sure it's ever too late, but there's already pre-existing uses for sure. So I think it's something, I mean, I'll be happy to have a chat with Lori. We can look at some of the regulations that have been adopted, and we can talk to some of the zoning and legal people involved in from Milford. I know some of the people in the Milford Orange and Westport also. So we can see whether it's working, not working, and what do they find is difficult on the enforcement side, and whether they think it's something that they wish they maybe didn't tackle. So, and we can probably report back at the next meeting. Is Lori here? Lori's there, right?
No, it's not here.
It's her birthday.
Hey, that's right. Happy birthday, Lori.
I just,
Well, the
just
majority-
review it, I mean,
If-
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if the majority of the commission doesn't wanna follow through with it, then
Well, just, yeah, think about it, I mean, let's just recoup next meeting and again, if you don't wanna do it, then we'll just put it to bed next meeting.
We were provided
Fair
a
enough.
list of 24, or I think you said it was
I mean,
24.
I like what Milford did.
Locations.
Don't have it,
Let's look at it.
that's it, end it. And
To see how many of them are ones you
Yeah.
consider. And then I think you'll find they're not as many as you think.
I like it when it specials path of discovery. So I think that we're dealing more with emotion than we're dealing with facts, and I like that idea of talking to Milford, talking to all these other towns, and
Yeah, because Milford got loaded.
I
I
mean,
mean, and so when they made this a year ago, it'd be interesting to see what's going on.
I think we need more data before we can make any judgment else, so. All right, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, nice job.
I like
I didn't
coming
want dinner anyway.
I like coming when it's something you want to talk about and something when you don't. I'm always here to be your nerd for hire, so.
Amazing how people call you nerd until they meet you.
Any comment from the public? Anybody on?
Looking to see, Rocky is on, if he has any comments, he's allowed to make comment.
He's just sweet, he's just turning it on.
Taking a bus of a zoo, you got no time.
So
That's
he
what I'm
can
going
chime in
with.
if he wanted to.
Ed, do you have anything?
I'll just bring up, I did ask the people from 248 South Main Street for a progress report on the wall, of what they're doing for an installation, and how it's going along. I think they have a plan of being done with the wall mid-September completely, is what they're doing. They provided back to me that the H-piles were installed, the panels are all installed. They were 80% on the backfill and 40% of the riprap. You can see they've been doing more with that, having it delivered going on. After the backfill riprap complete, fencing will be installed. Because I went over with them all the conditions that we had. As-built of the wall location they'll do an as-built plan for us. And they had given me an estimated date of September 12th for their expected time to be done with the wall. In the meantime, Jim did send me an email, and I think we're gonna be out there next week to meet with them just to see where they're at and what's going on there. So we have been talking with them on that as it went.
Are they gonna be doing the construction through the winter, or are they gonna pause at that point?
I don't know. I think they're really focused right
I don't
now
blame them,
on getting that part done.
What?
Thank you.
Otherwise, that's all I got right now.
Commissioners, any comments? Be safe.
I do. I would like the commission to consider looking at changing the zone or a Aurora Design District zone from the last application that we had for the Millville Field Street area. That's the part of what, 3-4 parcels that are
4 or 5.
that was kind of stuck up in the corner. We couldn't understand what it was even for, what it would even lend itself to. So I would suggest the commission look at rezoning that and making it go R8 to be in accordance with that whole area and to get rid of that odd
RADD that was there, that nobody can understand why it was there and what purpose it will serve.
Are you talking about that little sliver going right down the middle of it?
Yeah, above the high school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
So I think it would.
That's the one that has
encompass-
the access road.
Yeah. Which wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So there were 4 parcels in that proposal, and then there were 2 privately owned parcels. There were also, so it would be 6 there. But I do think we should look perhaps at a couple other ones to make sure. I asked Fred Agee about that, does our mapping. And when the Rubber Avenue Design District was done, he goes, yeah, we tended to go 1 parcel beyond what bordered Rubber Avenue. And that's where it ended up, I think, with parcels like that being hit. That probably didn't make sense.
Right, and it doesn't make sense now. So just to clean up the zone, it makes sense to do that now.
It makes sense.
Especially if they're residential
Right.
use.
Right.
Yeah, good.
Can we set that up for next month?
Yeah, we could start.
We gotta get the property.
Ouch.
Well, that would be part of the.
Well, the zoning commission has the authority to change the zone at any time, but we normally inform the property owner.
And they can come to the hearing.
I don't have no problem.
You also need a public hearing for it to do that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start the process. I think what I might try to get is, maybe we'll look at the entire Rubber Avenue Design District to see how far it stretches in to some of these neighborhoods.
Right, you know, the bottom line is just cleaning up the area, the zone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, especially in that section.
Yeah, you might have 1 or 2 that are like, why is that one? Doesn't even, it's not actually on Rubber Avenue, like these ones. So maybe that's an easy thing to look at.
Ned, do you have any update with Orange versus the zoning commission?
No, it's taken the ordinary course. I think the court has asked for additional information. It's been provided, and I believe Judge O'Hanlon's planning to put it on his decision schedule. It probably, I think he indicated he's probably going to start looking at it around October. So the parties have not been able to resolve it. So.
Nothing else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Very good. All right. Have a good night.
September 24th is the next zoning meeting. Not the 3rd Wednesday, the 4th.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, that's